What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Halftime Snacks podcast. This show features short interviews that you can listen during the halftime of your favorite sports events. Every Tuesday, I host fun conversations with talented people in the sports industry where we'll learn from their stories, knowledge, and experiences. So go grab your favorite snack and come snack with us. Are you ready? Let's go! Today's halftime snack features a wonderful and unique guest. This episode not only features an entrepreneur with over 20 years of experience in motorsports and esports, but she's also a three-time motocross world champion and an advocate for diversity and inclusion in sports. Today, she's the founder and CEO of Init Sports and Init Esports, entities that aim to create, develop, and promote events in motorsports, e-mobility, and esports to create opportunities for women and for minorities. Besides being an active speaker empowering women in sports, she advises for different organizations such as Women in Sports Tech, the NCAA Esports Commission, and the EK Female Advisory Board. It is my honor and pleasure to host her in today's Halftime Snacks. Ladies and gentlemen, Stefy, bow!
Thank you, Ronan. It's a pleasure to be here.
No, the pleasure is mine, Stefy. Welcome to the Halftime Snacks. Let's kick it off with a fun icebreaker, and I want to ask you, if you were a wrestler, what would be your entrance theme song? Now, I don't know if you have this in motocross. I don't know if you have this like entrance or something where you can play your theme song. Let's say, if you were a wrestler, what would be your theme song?
Well, I'm not really sure, but maybe, like it just popped in my head, like the eye of the tiger.
Okay.
So, that could be a good one.
That's a great one. You would get everyone pumped up. That's amazing. Let's talk about how you first got into motorsports. Of course, you're three-time world champion, and wow, like it's this type of like sport that is like so unique. You know how like speed and there's all these things going all around. So let's just go back in history and talk about how you first got into it.
Yeah, so, I was a little girl because I started riding F4 with a big dream. I wanted to become the world champion, and it was like a pass on to me, I guess, for the passion from my mom and dad. They've been a fan of the sport. So back in Italy, they used to go out and watch the World Championship when it was the time to come around in Italy. And they brought me since I was a little girl. And then one day I asked my mom and dad, can we get a motorcycle for me too? And they bought it. And then the rest is history.
Oh wow! So that's a great introduction for you. I'm sure it came a long way from that point to really becoming the world champion. And I really want to hear more about it, and we'll get into it a little bit more about that. But I wanna. There's this one concept that I've thought about. Really, I don't know so much more about motorsports that probably the average sports fan. So I know that it's like kind of like really racing and coming out to be the first one, but I'm sure there's so much more into it, like what really makes someone be consistent and stay consistent during his or her races. So but there's this thing that I wanted to like talk about with you, and that is risk and reward. This is very popular terms and concepts in, like, let's say, finance or in other areas, but I'm not really sure how it applies to motorsports. So can you share with us maybe what you think about that, or if you have any different like stories that can really help us represent what do they mean in the concept of motorsports? I think this will blow our minds because none of us, like, at least not me, I don't even know what it means, but I think it's going to be really interesting to hear it from you.
Yeah, so what I can say is that as an athlete, whatever type of athlete you lead with passion. So anything you do, it's about the passion that you have for that sport. So in motorsport, there is an added risk because you use a car or a motorcycle in my case, and then bring in a totally different new ways of possibly getting hurt, and figure it out what can happen. But when you are a professional athlete, you just don't think of that. You just can't, because if you think of failure, then you will never be able to perform at the best. And I have to say, like in business, it turns out to be very much the same. Like for me, I help me a lot in my business career after racing to really apply the same thing that I learned during my professional sport career. I mean, motocross and car racing, they teach you strategy. You need to learn, where and how to compete against your competition. They teach you they not never give up attitude, because stuff can happen, and that is same in business, but if you have the passion and and you believe in things, you can keep going, and not be put back. It teach you, like ways to be in front of people. Like when you are successful, you have to be able to have interviews in front of millions or thousands of people, and it's the same thing that happens when you enter the business world. You need to be able to be in front of people and promote yourself to get that job or that position or the promotion. So risk and rewards in anything in life, if you love what you do, you don't see the risk. So everything is a reward. So that's for me, like I live life in that way, and the sport taught me that, and I'm applying that to business as well.
That's very interesting, and I wonder if there's any point in time, especially in your career, in racing, was there any point in time that you felt like you failed? I want to touch on this subject. You had like an injury that ended your career. I don't know if you consider that a failure for you, or I wonder how you like perceive it. I understand
Right.
that you don't wanna think about it when you are racing or when you are competing. You don't wanna think about like risk or the chances of failing. But I wonder if like what's your mentality towards that? How did you see your injury in let's call it that in that way? How did you really perceive it, and how has it helped you really grow and become who you are today?
Yeah. So like anything you do in life, when you crash or fail or don't get quite where you want to be, it is a learning experience, right? So everything that happens happens, and then you learn, and then you try to better yourself. In this particular case that you brought out, this career-ending injury, it was the first time in my life that I fell and I couldn't get up, meaning like I couldn't continue anymore to do what I love to do up to that point. It was very abrupt. So, it's like all of a sudden the world that I knew up until that point pretty much ended. So, like you do go through moments of depression and being sad, and actually kind of like try to figure it out. Okay, so now what? What is going to happen next? But, like I ended up turning things around, and I try very hard to look at the positive, and I turn a negative happening into something positive. And I start thinking, it's like at 28 years old, which was the time that I got hurt, I was a very accomplished racer. At that point, I had the chance now to start another successful career, like just at 28. And a lot of people don't even start their first career at 20 years old, right? So you kind of like always try to look at the positive. And I feel the people that are success in life, they really grasp to that notion a lot. So I suggest to everybody to always look at the silver lining and try to find the positive on everything that happens to you.
That's super interesting. Really going from like 100%, being devoted all your life to it, and then going to zero. It really must have been, hard crashing for you and for your emotions. Would you say that kind of like there's specific factors surrounding you that help you overcome that? I'm just thinking about like quickly like friends or family or your own like voice inside voice. Like, is there any specific thing that really helped you, in case anyone listening or anyone that interested in maybe learning how do you really overcome that or become more mentally tough or more resilient? Do you have any like what really worked for you?
Yeah, like I have to say, for sure, surrounding yourself with positive people, no matter what, that's a very first step that you should look at in your life. So for me, I've been very lucky to have incredible parents that they support me on anything I did. So they were there in the good times and in the bad times. So then, like having a team of people, around you. Motorsport is a single person sport, but not really, meaning that you have a team around you that take care of the motorcycle, the car, the sponsorship, and the training and whatnot. So all of these people, they become your family. So having like a team around you that is there no matter what, it is the number one thing that you can have to be able to get out of bad situations. So yes, I always say that, and it's a suggestion to everybody, and always try to surround yourself with people that might be even knowing more than you, because you can always learn from somebody that is better than you, right? So try to do that, like always surround yourself with people that might have been there before, that they can be your mentor, and then you can learn from them and continue to grow.
I love that. I love that. Let's talk about Init Esports and Init Sports. Do you refer to it as Init Sports or just Init
I just
or
call
Init Esports? Is it
they
like
kind of like go all of them under one umbrella at one point, so it's just in it,
okay? Okay, so let's talk about
Yeah.
Init. I wonder, when did you first realize there was a need or a pain in the
Mhm.
industry, or two dots that you saw that were interesting to connect through Init, and that this was something you really stood for and wanted to make a change in it. What was the moment when you were like, this needs a solution?
Yeah, so first I'm gonna give a small distinction. So Init Sport is more like a business development company, and that's what I created after I got done with my racing career. And that was because I had all of this connection all over around the world, so I fell onto what I knew. So about connecting people, connecting companies, and help them opening up branches either in Europe or in the United States. I've done that for a very long time. I'm very, very happy with that. And then about 2 years ago, I was in Italy and I saw my niece spending 4 to 5 hours a day watching people playing video games. And I'm like, huh. I'm a person that usually like very much to look at the younger generation because I think they are the trendsetter. So, like you can learn a lot from the young people, what they spend their time. So I'm like, let's see if I can connect the two things and if I can connect motorsport and video game. So I dove deep into the field, and I learned that Formula One was the number one esport for motorsport. They did an incredible job, but there was like a lot of like gaps, like around the world to really try to make motorsport as an opportunity, just like all the other esports. So because I walk and talk the diversity and inclusion aspect, I wanted to put everything under one umbrella and say, okay, I'm going to develop a company that's going to focus on creating events, special events, where we can bring in people from any background, any minority, any walk of life to be able to enjoy something that is super fun. On top of it, if you know anything or you don't know anything about esport, the video games that are famous, they probably has entered people's household, like the League of Legends and the Fortnite. Those sports are very difficult to understand, if you are not into that field. Car racing is simple, it's intuitive, everybody's been in a car. So like you have at least the concept that there is a steering wheel and a brake pedal and a gas pedal, right? So yeah, I just again, going back to the beginning of the podcast, I follow my passion, and I saw the dots, I connect them, and now I have Init Sport, and we are coming up with very, very super cool initiative.
Okay, so I guess that we can get a really valuable insight from you right here, Steffi. What do you think is harder, to win in real motorsports or to win in esports motorsports?
It's a very funny question that you put out there, because depend who you ask, it'll give you a different answer. Let's say like this though, like in real motorsport, you have the physical aspect, which is not as strong as in digital sport, because you are not really inside a car or on a motorcycle.
Right.
But the mental toughness, it's identical. Like
Oh wow.
I had people playing, on a sim racing and have the same heartbeat, than the same ride the driver that is in the car. So like those type of reaction, they are very very similar, but you take away the opportunity to get hurt. So you know so I don't know, like what's hardest or what's toughest, like again, if you're looking on the physical side, because of the risk and reward aspect as a ratio, the real life sport is harder. But
Yeah.
there are those people that train as much as the real drivers. So 8-9 hour a day, they are on the sims, and they train. So it's very similar, I have to say.
That's fascinating. It's definitely safer to do it on esports, but kind of like really intrigues me where or how can that fit into like training, if that makes any sense. Like how, maybe not now, but maybe how much in the future can you train actual motorsports athletes in or through esports? I think that's going to be super interesting to see. Talking about like a little bit of about that kind of like the technology and how it's shifting and how it's accelerating. You've been in the sport for a while, so you know it quite well. How have you seen technology shift motorsports, and how do you see it shifting in the future? Like what are some of the things that, as you mentioned probably before, was the trend that you saw on your knees, but now like who you're seeing it from, or what kind of like things you think are going to shift or make this connection between those two dots, motorsports and esports, closer together. Maybe that part of the training that I mentioned is something that you already see and you already know. So let me stop talking and you give us what you think about that.
Yeah, so sim racing is actually becoming the only sport right now that really translate into the real thing. All the top teams in the world, they have simulators, and they put their driver into the simulator because they are so sophisticated that you can have the same exact reaction that you have when you are in the car. I'll tell you one more. There was a campaign that was done a couple years ago from putting together people that play on the sim. This particular guy won this competition, and it caught the attention, of his skills from a real team. The real team hired the guy to do a race. In his second real race, in real life race, he won the race. So it is there. It's a grassroots way to be able to bring more people into motorsports. So what we are doing within it is actually going to schools now to be able to bring sim racing technology into schools, so people can get a possibility instead of having to spend a lot of money to get a go-kart, for instance, and start practice and get passionate about the sport. Now you can do it for a fraction of the cost in a sim, right? And then of course there are so many different level of sim, so it can get expensive, but the first step with the steering wheel and the pedal is not that pricing, but it gives you the same feeling to be able to get into the sport. Also, sim racing gives the opportunity to really develop STEM, meaning there is a lot of opportunity to get into engineering through learning how to maneuver a simulator. So this like is another career path. So then it doesn't necessarily mean that everybody has to be a driver, but it can open up opportunity to develop people that can be engineering, try to figure out chassis, how they work in the car, and all of this is something that now the companies that make cars, so car manufacturers, are looking into it and having driver they can be testing cars in the sim before actually even making the car, because the technology is there. You can learn so much.
Right.
So it's super intriguing, and it's opening up doors in so many different ways. So, and for me, what is very very exciting is the fact it gives opportunity to minorities to really get involved with it without having to spend a lot of money to actually get the first go-kart, and then get involved and get the passion for it.
Yeah, that's something amazing that you've been doing. I want to talk more about that. Diversity and inclusion, of course, it has been, I guess, a relevant area in your career. Not sure if it was as accepted before as it is now to have the mixed element in motorsport, both for having male and women racers. Probably could be really interesting if we could get your insight around that, and also like if you can tell us a bit of what you are trying to do actively, what type of projects you're working on to bring and bridge these two elements together. I think we'll learn a lot about that.
Yeah, so I can say that I've been very lucky to have two parents that never put anything in front of me like that I cannot do. Right. So having parents that say that you can do whatever you put your heart to by working hard, because there is no shortcut in this life, so you have to work hard, you can achieve it. So I always led with that. So every time, even starting in a sport that is male dominated, meaning like there is not many female participating, I never saw myself any different than any other competitor. So by growing up with that mentality, I carry it with me throughout my entire life. So now I do a lot of talks, to inspire people, and I always like to say, don't put yourself in that box. Like society tend to say, oh, women should do this, where men should do that, and minority should be there but not here, and so on and so forth. So like, you change your own mentality, don't put yourself in that box. So if you can just try to change the way of thinking little by little, people are going to start to see you as somebody that don't want to be put in the box. So immediately they put you in the same level of them when you discuss with them. And this is why, like by living my life in this way, I am on board meeting where more often than not, I'm the only woman there. And I'm totally comfortable because I lead with that message. So for me, it's also important to show this to other women, especially because I'm a believer that if you can see it, you can be it. So, I always tell women and girls like, hey, I've done it. So I'm here. I'm going to teach you how to do it too. And then let's see where we can go. So for me, it's just that. Don't put yourself in the box, and just believe in yourself.
That's super interesting how you mentioned it really comes down from a psychological standpoint. You know, how like the beliefs that you have really shape your reality or shape your the way you think about things, and that really makes your actions different. So I just want to double tap on those beliefs, and I want to know if there's, besides that, limiting yourself, and staying in that box, is there any other belief? It can either be held also by women or men. I want to know if there's anything that you think that people think that might be, not so accurate in your experience, or that you may disagree with, or that maybe it is true but you're not so sure. Like, is there anything else that you can share with us regarding beliefs and really things that may sound, counterintuitive to people listening and being like, really? But I thought that was the way. And then you come in, with challenging this belief, really, is actually going to help them in the long run than hurt them. So if is there any beliefs that you want to share with us?
Yes, I can tell you that I have encountered in my life so many people, they think that other people are unreachable. That's wrong. We are all human beings. So, we have to respect each other's times, of course, but just go out and ask. You are an example. You came out and find me and ask me, hey, do you want to be on the podcast? So just do it, because it's not true that if somebody is doing something and you're not doing it, then that person is unreachable. And this is something that a lot of people believe. And for me, I don't understand why. But, I'm telling you, don't be afraid. Just go and ask. People are out there, and a lot of time they really want to help. So be respectful. That's the 100% number one rule, because everybody has a time, and they cannot really put all the time for other people. But if you're polite and you say, hey, I would like your suggestion, 99% of the time that person's going to reply and say, yeah, how can I help you? So just go for it.
I love that. I love that, Stefy. I've heard so many amazing kind of like mantras from you. You kind of like said, just do it, and you also said, don't be afraid and don't stay, don't try to like stay in your lane. Just expand your eye view and your sight and your perspective, and all those are really inspiring. Stefy, thank you so much for sharing. I can't really, leave you and let you go without asking you a even more personal question, and that is, amongst all of like the mantras and all the like ways that you think, what is like the number one mantra that you keep yourself reminding yourself, telling yourself every single day, that really pushed you forward to win 3 championships and pushed you to expand the boundaries of what was thought about diversity and inclusion, and is pushing you even further to develop and discover new and interesting opportunities in the intersection between sports, esports, and motorsports? So what is it that you tell yourself to be able to achieve all this greatness in this short time, and that is going to really help you to get to that next step and next level in the upcoming years?
Yeah, I would say that it is making the impossible possible, because it's impossible until you've done it.
That's amazing. That's an amazing one, Stefy. I want to thank you so much, really, for coming to the Halftime Snacks. It has been a pleasure to have you and snack an amazing and insightful, interesting, inspiring story. To hear really firsthand from you is really a pleasure and an honor. So I can't thank you enough. I'm sure it's going to be such a successful, venture in the future. I wish I could invest sometime in the future. Not that I have any money right now, but maybe I will. But anyways, thank you so much, Stefy. I'm looking forward to more interesting, insightful discussions with you. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe button and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. If you enjoy learning about the business and technology behind sports, make sure you subscribe to the Sports Tech Biz newsletter. I'll leave the link in the show notes. See you all next week. Bye-bye.